Steve Harvey had hosted Family Feud for over 15 years, and throughout that remarkable tenure, he had witnessed thousands of families compete on his stage. He had seen unexpected answers, hilarious misunderstandings, and moments of genuine surprise that made the show entertaining and unpredictable. But nothing in his extensive experience could have prepared him for what would unfold on a Thursday afternoon in April 2025, when a single answer to a seemingly innocent question would expose a deception that had lasted nearly 2 decades and would shatter a family in real time on national television. This is a story about how truth can emerge in the most unexpected moments, about the devastating consequences of long-term betrayal, and about why sometimes the most compassionate response is to stop everything and help people navigate the wreckage of their broken trust. If you believe that honesty and integrity are the foundation of strong families, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel, because what happened next will demonstrate that some secrets are too heavy to carry and will eventually collapse under their own weight. The Mitchell family from Charlotte, North Carolina, stood on one side of the Family Feud stage, appearing to be a successful and close-knit family ready to compete and enjoy their time on national television. The family was led by 51-year-old Robert Mitchell, a partner at a prominent accounting firm who had built his career on attention to detail and managing complex financial systems. Standing beside him was his wife of 23 years, Catherine Mitchell, a 48-year-old nonprofit executive director who had dedicated her career to supporting foster children and vulnerable families. Their 3 children completed the team, including 21-year-old Jennifer, a college senior studying social work, 19-year-old Daniel, a sophomore pursuing engineering, and 17-year-old Sarah, a high school junior with aspirations of becoming a physician. The Mitchell family had every appearance of success and stability. Robert was respected in his professional community, serving on boards and mentoring young accountants. Catherine had won awards for her nonprofit leadership and was frequently quoted in local media about child welfare issues. Their children were accomplished students involved in their communities. The family attended church regularly, hosted neighborhood gatherings, and presented themselves as a model of what dedication and strong values could build over 2 decades of marriage. What Catherine did not know, what their children did not know, and what was about to be revealed in the most public and devastating way possible, was that the foundation of their family had been compromised for nearly as long as the family had existed. Robert Mitchell had been living a double life for 18 years, maintaining a secret relationship that had produced consequences he had hidden through elaborate deception and careful financial manipulation. The truth had been buried under layers of lies, but it was about to surface in a way that no one could have anticipated. On the opposite side of the stage stood the Peterson family from Virginia, a warm and enthusiastic group that had no idea they were about to witness something that would transcend typical game show drama and become a moment that would haunt everyone present. Steve Harvey walked onto the stage with his characteristic warmth and energy, ready to facilitate what he expected to be another entertaining episode. He had reviewed the family introductions and had been impressed with both families, particularly noting the Mitchell family's commitment to community service and their children's academic achievements. He looked forward to highlighting their story and celebrating their bonds. The game began with both families demonstrating competitive spirit and quick thinking. The Mitchell family took the first round, with Robert showing impressive recall and strategic thinking. Catherine provided thoughtful answers that reflected her experience working with families. The children were engaged and supportive, cheering for each other and demonstrating the kind of family unity that made Family Feud special. The first 3 rounds proceeded normally, with both families competing well and the audience enjoying the friendly rivalry. The moment that would change everything came during the 4th round, when Steve asked a question that seemed straightforward and designed to elicit humorous responses. The question was this: name something a man might have 2 of without his wife knowing about it. It was the type of question that typically generated answers about credit cards, cars, gym memberships, or secret snack stashes. Question was meant to be lighthearted, touching on the minor secrets that many people keep from their partners without causing real harm. Robert buzzed in first, and what happened next would be analyzed and discussed for months afterward. Instead of giving a safe, common answer, Robert responded without apparent thought or hesitation. He said, clearly and confidently, "Another family." The studio fell into a confused silence. Steve's expression showed that he was processing whether he had heard correctly. The audience members looked at each other uncertainly, not sure if this was meant to be a joke or if something more serious had just occurred. Catherine Mitchell, standing beside her husband, froze completely. Her face went through a rapid progression of expressions from confusion to dawning horror to complete devastation. Steve, still not entirely certain what had just happened, attempted to move forward with the game. Another family. He repeated, looking at Robert with an expression that mixed confusion with growing concern. Sir, you want to clarify what you mean by that? Robert Mitchell's face suddenly showed the realization of what he had just said. The color drained from his complexion, and his eyes widened with panic as he understood that his carefully guarded secret had just been exposed in the worst possible way. He had spent 18 years protecting this information, managing two separate lives with meticulous planning and constant vigilance, and in a moment of pressure and distraction on a game show stage, he had revealed everything. I was thinking. The question was, Robert stammered, trying desperately to walk back his answer, but the damage was already done. His panic and his inability to provide a coherent explanation confirmed what everyone was beginning to suspect. Catherine Mitchell was staring at her husband with an expression that transcended shock or hurt. It was the look of someone whose entire understanding of reality was being rewritten in real time, whose past was being recontextualized, whose future was crumbling. She took a step backward, her hand going to her chest as if she had been physically struck. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was barely above a whisper, but the microphones caught every word. Robert, what did you just say? Catherine asked, her voice shaking. What do you mean another family? What are you talking about? Their children, standing nearby, were looking from their father to their mother with growing alarm. Jennifer, the oldest, had gone pale and was holding onto the podium for support. Daniel's expression showed the particular confusion of someone trying to process information that makes no logical sense. Sarah began crying quietly, her teenage mind understanding that something terrible was happening but not yet comprehending the full scope. Robert attempted to explain it away, claiming it was a joke, that he had misunderstood the question, that everyone was overreacting. But his panic and his inability to look his wife in the eyes betrayed him. Catherine, who had spent 23 years learning to read her husband's expressions and moods, knew with absolute certainty that he was lying. Tell me the truth right now, Catherine demanded, her voice growing stronger even as tears began streaming down her face. In front of these people, in front of our children, in front of God and everyone watching, you tell me the truth. Do you have another family? The silence in the studio was absolute. Every person present was holding their breath, waiting for Robert's response. Steve Harvey stood frozen, his usual quick wit and ability to handle unexpected situations completely overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was unfolding. Robert Mitchell's face crumpled. In that moment, the weight of 18 years of deception became too heavy to carry. Whether it was exhaustion, relief at finally being discovered, or simply the impossibility of maintaining the lie in the face of such direct questioning, he broke. His voice was barely audible when he finally spoke the words that would destroy his family. Yes, he said simply, I have two other children, a son and a daughter. They are 17 and 15. Their mother and I have been together for 18 years. The reaction was immediate and catastrophic. Catherine made a sound that was something between a scream and a sob, a primal expression of pain that made several audience members begin crying. She collapsed to her knees right there on the stage, her body shaking with the force of her grief. Jennifer rushed to her mother, kneeling beside her and wrapping her arms around her while crying herself. Daniel stood rigid with shock, his face showing incomprehension and betrayal. Sarah was sobbing uncontrollably, and a production assistant moved quickly to comfort her. Steve Harvey finally moved, snapping out of his frozen state. He immediately signaled to the production team, making a cutting motion across his throat to stop the cameras. His voice, when he spoke, was firm and carried the weight of someone who understood that this had transcended entertainment and become a personal tragedy that required compassion rather than spectacle. Stop the cameras now, Steve commanded. Turn everything off. This family needs privacy, not an audience. Everyone clear the stage except essential personnel. Get me a counselor or therapist from our staff if we have one available. Move now. The production team responded immediately to Steve's authority. The official cameras were cut, though backup systems continued recording for legal purposes. The audience was asked to remain in their seats, but to give the family privacy and silence. The Peterson family was quietly escorted off stage, looking shaken by what they had witnessed. Steve knelt down beside Catherine, who was still on her knees with Jennifer holding her. His voice was gentle and filled with genuine compassion as he spoke to her. Ma'am, I am so sorry. You should never have found out like this. No one should have to experience this kind of pain in public. We are going to help you get through the next few minutes, and then we are going to make sure you have support and resources to deal with what comes next." Catherine looked at Steve through her tears, and her voice when she spoke carried the weight of 23 years of marriage being revealed as partially false. 18 years, she said, the words coming out broken. He has had another family for 18 years. Our youngest daughter is 17. He started this affair and had a child with another woman when I was pregnant with Sarah. He has been lying to me every single day for almost our entire marriage. Everything I thought I knew about my life was a lie. The implications of her words hung in the air. This was not a brief affair or a one-time mistake. This was a systematic deception that had lasted nearly 2 decades. Robert had maintained 2 complete family systems, attending parent-teacher conferences for 2 sets of children, celebrating 2 sets of birthdays and holidays, managing complex financial arrangements to support 2 households. The level of planning and continuous lying required for such an undertaking was staggering. Steve turned his attention to the Mitchell children, particularly to Jennifer, Daniel, and Sarah, who were all in various states of shock and grief. He spoke to them with the care of someone who understood that they had just lost their understanding of who their father was and what their family had been. "I know this is overwhelming and painful," Steve said to them. "You have just learned something that no children should have to find out, especially in this way. Your father's choices are not your fault, and they do not reflect on you. You are going to need time to process this, and you are going to need support. We are going to make sure you get connected with people who can help you work through this." Meanwhile, Robert Mitchell stood alone several feet away, isolated by his confession. No one approached him, no one offered comfort, and the studio staff who had to remain nearby avoided looking at him directly. Steve eventually walked over to him, and the conversation that followed was quiet but intense. "Mr. Mitchell, I have been doing this job for over 15 years, and I have seen a lot of things," Steve said, his voice controlled but carrying an edge of anger and disappointment. "But I have never seen anything like what you just did to your family. You brought your wife and children on national television, and you exposed the most devastating betrayal possible in the most public way imaginable. I do not know whether that was self-sabotage, a cry for help, or just carelessness, but the pain you have caused is immeasurable." Robert attempted to explain, to provide context or justification, but Steve cut him off. "Sir, there is nothing you can say right now that will make this better. Your wife is destroyed. Your children are traumatized, and somewhere there is another woman and 2 other children who are also going to be affected by this public revelation. You need to think very carefully about what you do next, because every choice you make from this moment forward will have consequences for multiple families." The producers and network executives were in emergency consultations about how to handle the situation. The decision was made quickly and unanimously to cancel the rest of the taping and to provide immediate support to the Mitchell family. Mental health professionals who worked with the network were contacted, and arrangements were made to have counselors available to the family immediately. Steve spent considerable time with Catherine and her children, ensuring they had contact information for therapists who specialized in trauma and betrayal, for attorneys who could help navigate what would certainly be a complex divorce, and for support groups for people dealing with infidelity. He also made arrangements for the family to be transported back to their hotel privately, avoiding media or public attention. Before the Mitchell family left the studio, Catherine asked to speak with Steve privately. What she said to him was not recorded, but Steve later described the conversation in interviews as one of the most heartbreaking moments of his career. Catherine thanked him for stopping the cameras and for treating her family with dignity in their worst moment. She told him that while finding out the truth had been devastating, it was better than continuing to live in a lie. She said that she now understood years of inconsistencies and strange behaviors that she had explained away or ignored, and that the truth, however painful, would allow her to make decisions based on reality rather than deception. The decision about whether to air any portion of this incident became a subject of intense ethical debate. Unlike situations involving racism or discrimination where airing the footage served an educational purpose, this was a private family tragedy that offered no broader social lesson beyond the obvious reminder that secrets and lies eventually surface. The decision was made not to air the episode and not to publicly discuss the specific details of what had occurred, beyond a general statement that a family had experienced a personal crisis during taping. However, information about what had happened inevitably leaked through various sources. Audience members talked, crew members shared the story, and eventually Robert's other family became aware that their secret had been exposed on national television. The full scope of Robert's double life began to emerge through court documents, media reports, and social media discussions. The details that emerged painted a picture of truly extraordinary deception. For 18 years, Robert had maintained two complete family systems. He had a second partner, Angela, who lived in a different part of Charlotte. Their two children, a 17-year-old son named Marcus and a 15-year-old daughter named Emily, had grown up believing that their father was a dedicated parent who traveled frequently for work. Angela had known that Robert was married to Catherine, but had been told repeatedly that the marriage was essentially over. That divorce was complicated because of the children and finances, and that Robert was committed to eventually leaving his first family to be with her and their children full-time. The financial arrangements Robert had made were complex and had required significant resources. He had been supporting two households, paying for two sets of children's expenses, including private schools and extracurricular activities, and managing the logistics of being present for two families. He had used his accounting expertise to hide expenses, to create separate financial accounts, and to explain away his absences and the missing money. He had told Catherine that his extended work trips and late nights were necessary for major clients. He had told Angela that his absences were required for his legitimate family obligations that he could not immediately abandon. Catherine filed for divorce within days of the Family Feud revelation. The divorce proceedings were complex and contentious, involving not just the division of assets between Robert and Catherine, but also claims from Angela regarding child support for Marcus and Emily. Financial forensics revealed that Robert had diverted significant marital funds to support his second family, which became a major issue in the divorce settlement. Catherine was granted primary custody of their minor child Sarah, received a substantial portion of marital assets, and was awarded significant alimony and child support. The impact on the Mitchell children was profound and long-lasting. Jennifer, Daniel, and Sarah all entered therapy to process the trauma of discovering their father's betrayal and of learning that they had half-siblings they had never known about. The revelation fundamentally altered their relationships with Robert, with trust shattered and years of memories recontextualized by the knowledge of his double life. Some members of the family eventually developed relationships with Marcus and Emily, recognizing that the younger children were also victims of Robert's deception, while others chose to maintain distance from anything connected to their father's betrayal. Robert's professional reputation was severely damaged by the public nature of the revelation. While his accounting skills were not in question, clients and partners struggled with the trust issues raised by someone who had maintained such an elaborate deception in his personal life. He eventually left his partnership at the accounting firm and relocated to a different city, attempting to rebuild his career and his relationships with all of his children. Angela and her children also faced significant challenges. Public exposure of their family situation brought scrutiny and judgment from their community. Angela had to confront the reality that Robert had never been as committed to leaving his first family as he had claimed, and that she and her children had been part of an elaborate lie rather than a transitional arrangement leading to a legitimate family structure. She also had to help Marcus and Emily process the trauma of learning that their entire understanding of their family had been based on deception. Steve Harvey addressed the incident obliquely in later episodes and interviews, discussing the importance of honesty in relationships and the devastating consequences of betrayal without referencing the specific Mitchell family situation. He talked about how secrets always have a cost, how lies accumulate weight over time, and how the truth, however painful, is ultimately better than living in deception. He also discussed the importance of seeking help when marriages are struggling rather than pursuing affairs or maintaining double lives. Several months after the incident, Catherine Mitchell gave a carefully considered interview to a national publication discussing her experience, not to seek revenge or to further hurt her ex-husband, but to help other people who might be experiencing similar situations. She talked about the warning signs she had ignored or explained away, including financial inconsistencies, unexplained absences, and emotional distance. She discussed the importance of trusting your instincts when something feels wrong in a relationship. She spoke about the process of rebuilding her life and her identity after discovering that so much of what she thought she knew about her marriage had been false. In that interview, Catherine also spoke about the surreal experience of discovering the truth on national television. She acknowledged that while the public nature of the revelation had been humiliating and traumatic, it had also made denial impossible and had forced immediate action rather than years of trying to save a marriage that had been fundamentally dishonest. She expressed gratitude to Steve Harvey and the Family Feud staff for their compassion and for prioritizing her family's well-being over entertainment value. The story became a cautionary tale about the consequences of maintaining elaborate deceptions and about how truth eventually emerges regardless of how carefully secrets are guarded. It was discussed in therapy offices as an example of how disclosure can happen unexpectedly and how families need support to navigate the aftermath of significant betrayals. It was referenced in legal discussions about financial deception in marriage and about the rights of children born from affairs. Years after the incident, the various members of the extended Mitchell family had found different paths forward. Catherine had rebuilt her life, advancing in her nonprofit career and eventually entering a new relationship built on honesty and mutual respect. Jennifer, Daniel, and Sarah had processed their trauma with the help of therapy and had developed their own relationships with their father separate from his relationship with their mother. Some had chosen to develop relationships with their half-siblings Marcus and Emily, while others had maintained boundaries. Robert continued to attempt to repair relationships with all of his children, with varying degrees of success depending on each child's ability to forgive and move forward. As this complex and painful story reaches its conclusion, several important lessons emerge about honesty, trust, and the foundations of family relationships. Secrets and deception, no matter how carefully maintained, eventually collapse under their own weight and cause more damage in their revelation than honesty would have caused initially. Betrayal affects not just the immediate partners, but extends to children, extended family, and entire communities. Truth, however painful, provides the foundation for making informed decisions and for building authentic relationships. When we witness someone experiencing devastating revelation and pain, the compassionate response is to prioritize their dignity and well-being over spectacle or entertainment. Steve Harvey's response to the Mitchell family's crisis demonstrated that sometimes the most important thing a person with a platform can do is to stop everything, to turn off the cameras, to prioritize human compassion over ratings, and to ensure that people in crisis receive support and resources rather than becoming entertainment for viewers. His decision to handle the situation with dignity and to provide real support to the family showed a level of moral leadership that transcended his role as a game show host. If this story moved you, if you believe in the importance of honesty and integrity in relationships, and in treating people with compassion when their worlds fall apart, make sure to like and subscribe. These are the stories that remind us that every choice we make has consequences, that deception always carries a cost, and that building our lives on truth and authenticity is the only way to create families and relationships that can truly endure.